We're taking on a topic we haven't addressed before here on We're No Damn Experts. A Great Falls police captain joins us to talk about safety in Great Falls. We'll talk about what you need to know when you're visiting our community. We'll dispel some rumors and add in some humor, all with the goal of helping you feel informed, confident, and comfortable right here in Great Falls.
Best damn podcast, the best damn town. You want to get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Thames, if you want to go, we can take you there to Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls. I'm Rebecca Ingham.
I'm Shannon Newth, and we're No Damn Experts.
Let me just, before you introduce our guest.
Yes.
I am nervous about this episode, and this is the only episode I have ever been
Am I
nervous
the only one
about.
not nervous in this room right now?
I think maybe.
Okay.
Mine has nothing to do with who our guest is.
Okay.
It's about the content.
The topic. Because it's not like any other episode we've done.
So,
but for a
folks,
good reason.
settle in. We're going to have a super fun, good time. We're going to be talking about how safe our community is.
Yeah, we're covering all of those topics. And today we're excited and honored to have Captain Doug Otto in the studio with us. I always want to say, Doug, I always want to say Lieutenant because that's when we work together. That's always the reference. But you've been upgraded to Captain. Congratulations. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So you have a nearly 3-decade-long career in law enforcement.
28 years in November.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I want you to tell people a little bit about you. So you're not only have you been with the Great Falls Police Department, you also serve in Montana Air National Guard.
Yeah.
Served in the Montana Air National Guard.
Yeah. So I've been with the department 28 years. I've pretty much worked in every bureau that we have and done every job within the department: special projects, investigations, patrol, SWAT, all of the different things that are out there. So I got to experience everything that we have to offer. I came to Montana through the military. So I was active duty at Malmstrom Air Force Base, and I transitioned to the Montana Air National Guard in 1995. Yeah,
Ooh.
95. Transferred there, got hired with Great Falls, and I served 31 years. I retired 2 years ago from the Montana Air National Guard. So,
my gosh,
it's been awesome, fun time. So, and the retirement was timely because it was about the same time I got promoted to captain, and I can realize that there's no way I could have done both because this is a full plate, what we deal with on the department side.
And it continues the legacy in your family too. You have a son.
Yes, I have 3 kids. There was a couple goals I had when I was in is, one of my main goals was hoping that one of my children would serve. And my youngest, Eric, he is with the Montana Air National Guard as well, serves in the 219th Red Horse as an equipment operator. So, I got a chance to go to his basic training graduation and all that stuff. And I think that was the highlight that you can look at in my career, not to mention the positions that I was able to work in while I served in there. So
full circle moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome.
That's neat. You also have a lovely wife, and I love this part. You're a big dog person.
Oh, yeah.
I love your dogs. We bonded over that. So Captain Otto and I, just to give a little background about how him and I know each other, when I worked at KRTV, which I've shared that before in my prior life before I worked here, I had the police beat, if you will. And for a long time, I don't think this happens anymore, but for a long time, there was in-person media
Press briefs.
Thank you. I was like, what do we even call it? Press briefings daily, where members of each media outlet would have the opportunity to go to the police station, look over the call.
Daily?
We
look
did
over
daily
the,
for a long time.
Holy moly.
Look over the call logs for the prior 24 hours. We could ask questions about things, certain calls we could ask about. And then we also, to me, it was really important and a very valuable thing that was done and was unique to Great Falls. I don't think anywhere else in Montana had that type of relationship between media and the police departments in terms of being able to have that face-to-face interaction. And then that's also how we developed relationships. And for media and reporters, it gave us the opportunity to have a better understanding of what law enforcement looked like, what was happening in our community, and also help be buffer, if you will, sometimes between maybe community issues and the police, because we got that better understanding of this is why they respond to calls, or this is how you respond to this. Or if you had a trusting relationship, okay, here's the background, but this is why we can't release everything yet on this. So it was a really valuable time, but that's how I got to know Captain Otto, was through those experiences for a couple of years.
Yeah, it was about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I just met him today. Thank God. Like, he's never pulled me over. I've never been
Oh,
arrested.
well, that's nice.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of benefits. I
Yeah.
have a deep history with the police department in Great Falls from when I was a child, not because of anything other than I had family members that served on the PD.
Aha. Okay.
So most of our holidays were spent with most of the Great Falls Police Department. So I knew a lot of people
there you go.
then.
Nice.
I don't have that benefit these days.
Yeah, and it's surprising. Even being on there 28 years, we have so many new faces, and
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
officers that are retired. They're like, I don't know anybody anymore, and that's just the nature of the beast we
Sure.
have. It's
Yeah.
people move on, retire, and now we have.
Yeah.
I realize that I'm older because we are hiring officers that are younger than my children.
Oh,
And so
You're
that's
like,
when I knew full circle came in. Is
Look
I'm
at
like,
that.
okay, these
This is
guys
great.
and gals are younger than my kids.
And
Yeah.
you look at badge numbers and you're like, how did we get
Yeah,
how did we get to that? Yeah.
So my badge number is 188.
Uh-huh.
The badge number I think we're at right now is 370,
holy
378,
Okay.
and we're getting ready to hire
Yeah.
6. Sorry,
Okay.
6.
Wow. Yeah, pushing that 400 number, aren't we?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So you mentioned that we've talked about your promotion to captain, and you said you wouldn't have, it was good timing as far as your retirement from the Air Guard, because this is a really full plate. Can you help us understand what all being a captain in GFPD means and entails when you're at that level?
So our structure is unique compared to other cities in Montana. We don't have an assistant chief. So we have the chief of police, and there are 3 captains, because we have there are 5 bureaus within the department.
Okay.
3 of which are considered sworn. So that's the uniformed officers or sworn officers. I oversee the Support Services Bureau. So I get a lot of grief from my 2 counterparts that I don't do police work.
Wow.
Well, you did at some point, at least, because you got to where you are. Yeah.
They joke now. They handle all the police work, and I manage logistics, fleet, hiring, recruitment, training,
Oh,
all of
wow.
those type of things. That's the bureau that I oversee. So there's a lot of stuff, and I also manage our grants that we get through the federal government. And
Oh, so you pay for some of their stuff.
oh yeah, I'm a very popular person when it
Yeah.
comes towards the end of
Money,
the budget
money.
year.
Uh-huh.
Everybody wants to come talk to me because they're
Uh-huh.
like, hey, you got some money? I'm like, I see how this goes. But it is busy.
Yeah.
We're constantly hiring. We're always looking for, good officers to come work. It's a great department, great city to be part of.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing that we have going for us is we have really, really good people. And, so I wouldn't want to have it any other way. People are like, man, don't you want to retire? I'm like, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. That's
I got
good.
I got a little time to go yet. So they always joke I'll probably be taken out in a wheelchair. But hey, whatever.
Hey,
That's good. You got to keep good people.
it's better than
Yeah.
being forced to show up every day for work and
Yeah,
then have
exactly.
that
That's
reflect
true.
in your
Yeah.
job. So clearly we've found an expert to talk about
Yes.
this topic. And this all came about because Shannon actually came up with the idea, but we often get asked, people will walk in here to our office. It's not a large percentage of our travelers that walk in, but a lot of people who are visiting and then people who are relocating. We get a lot of people relocating or interested in relocating. And we get this question, and we just sit there and stare at people when we get this question because we have absolutely no idea how to answer this.
Or what measures.
Right. So
yet to even-
they look at us and they're like, how safe is Great Falls? And I'm like,
That's
pretty safe.
like that's a pretty how do you go about answering that? What terms are you measuring
Yeah.
safety by? Yeah.
So, we give them our firsthand accounts of how safe we've been as residents for 20 years. But hey, you're an expert. How should we be answering that question? And how safe is Great Falls?
Great. I've had this. I'll have people call in
Sure.
and they'll ask, well, we're moving here. Where do we want to, where should we or should we not live? Or is it safe to be there? And I'm like, any place you go to in the United States has some form of criminal activity. I don't care where it is. You can pick a spot on a map. Maybe small town USA is
Yeah.
not that, but I mean, super small town. but any place you go to is going to have it. Are we safe here? Yes. I will say we are. We have our own problems within the community, criminal activity, drug activity, things like that. But I think for people visiting, people that are going to come here, they're going to find that this is a good community because, our officers we live by what I refer to as the 3 C's: community, compassion, and courage. That's our motto. And we are compassionate to anybody that's here. If we have people from out of town, we try to help them understand what's going on if they get pulled over on a traffic stop or whatever, or in a crash. But we try to help out as much as we can to let them know, hey, we're here for you. We'll take care of you. But things are not horrible here. They're no different than any place else.
Well, humans live everywhere, and where you have humans, there's issues. Yeah,
exactly.
And talking about those 3 C's, you also go by this kind of community policing model, if you will. Can you talk about what that is and what that means, and how
vigilante justice,
how you all train your officers to live and interact in the community? Probably not the vigilante justice is my guess.
I'm going to put my own badge on.
It's not vigilante justice. It's, might be the West, but we aren't the Old West.
You better check your hip before you leave. Make sure your badge is still on there. Rebecca didn't take it.
Our officers, we hire for character. When we hire our officers, we're looking for the character of the individual. I don't care, and the chief sentiment is, we don't care what you have worked before. We have had people that have worked insurance, plumbers, electricians. It's not that you have to be this cookie cutter mold of a person, because that's what we're finding is people that reach different groups within the community, and everybody we hire takes, some of them almost to a fault, have so much compassion and will give so much that you have to tell them, okay, take a breath. There's plenty to go around, and there's other people that can pick this up. Those are things that we have to constantly work for and strive for while we're with our officers on the department. But our officers give 110%, and I was like, well, 100% is the highest you can give. They go beyond it. They really do. They go beyond it. We have great individuals that work on this within our agency. And we have great relationships with different groups in the community, with other law enforcement entities in the area. It's a great place to be.
And there was recently a story I heard about an officer who stepped in to help. It was a situation, I believe, in I'm not going to get all these details correct, and it's okay if you can say I don't know the details either, but I believe it was real recently, within the last week or two, an officer, there was a situation, maybe a shoplifting situation, a mother and her child, and this officer actually stepped in to help pay for the thing that the child needed.
He went to the shoplift call. The store didn't want to prosecute. He learned that the mother was actually, she had stolen medication.
And
he bought it.
For the child,
And that is something that we look for in our individuals. And most of them, you have to pry this out of them to find out this information because they're very private about it. They're very humble. And that's what our agency is. There's so much humility. People don't want to share those stories of things that they're doing that are above and beyond the normal day-to-day things. So that's what this is about. I mean, we're hiring people from within the community, people from outside, other states, but it doesn't matter. It's that character that we get that really shines out. And like I said, we many times have to pry it out of them, but we try to showcase that because that's what's important to see what this community is about.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to know kind of that model. And I know from working with you guys, that's not a rare thing, but just a unique thing about GFPD is that focus on community. That being said, I want to go back and talk about, because obviously we do have issues, and there are things where I see people, and this is what makes me so angry when I read comments on Facebook, which is just a terrible hole to go down.
All people should do. Just take an afternoon, read every comment on the internet.
I'll see on there's varying Great Falls community pages, and people will be like, oh, we're going to come visit here, and I try to get on there as our content person. I try to get on there if I see people asking in these, like, what's happening Great Falls pages, like get on, like, tell people what's happening from a reputable source. But so many times I see people commenting like, oh, you don't want to come here. Oh, we have just such a drug problem, druggies everywhere, and just all of these things. And I just get so angry. So I want to acknowledge, okay, what are the issues, but what is the reality of the issues that we're facing here in Great Falls?
We have issues.
Right.
Maybe we should start with, we've never bought drugs, so we don't know anything about that.
Right. I don't even know where to
either,
find them.
so-
Yeah.
If you're looking for drugs, I can say you probably will find them.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That's what it is. If you're out looking for that, I'm sure you'll probably find it.
And if you're that type of visitor, just go to a different town that offers the same thing.
But for those that aren't looking for it,
Yeah.
you probably won't even see it. You
Yeah.
may encounter something because we have different levels of things. We have, there's a drug issue that we have, and I can talk more about that in a bit. We do have crime that goes on, particularly that's all related to drugs. There are things that go on because of the drug problem, which is a nationwide thing and a statewide thing, but other criminal activity is a direct result of drug use. So people are stealing to pay for their drug habit.
Yeah.
People get into violent encounters because they're either on alcohol or drugs. So these are the type of things. And we always look at it over the years. Some of the names that continue to pop up on the calls we deal with of people that we work, deal with our regular clientele.
Frequent flyers.
It's 90% of the problem is 10% of the population.
Wow.
That's how we refer to it. And it has never changed in my time on the department and other guys that have been there for a long time. It's the same thing. And it's just generational. We see the same names continue to flow through. So you're getting your rarities of this, that, and the other that happen, but it is not something that is running rampant and crazy. Yeah, we have it. It's there. So I can't say that it's this perfect rainbows and unicorns, but it's not something that if you're not looking for it and you're doing things to safeguard yourself and safeguard what you have, you're going to be just fine.
Let me just share my fun story about meth. It's a good story. Years and years ago, I was doing workforce development in Lewistown, and we had a mandatory presentation that we had to attend from the Great Falls Police Department because they were doing such a fantastic job of eradicating drug activity and drug production within Great Falls that they were being pushed out into smaller communities. And so GFPD came out to educate kind of these smaller communities about what was happening and shared a lot. And I would almost venture to say maybe too much about the process of how certain things were made. So much so that afterwards I went and asked some clarifying questions about a French press method I was considering. Like, could this be a interesting option? And then I'm pretty sure my name ended up on a list somewhere like, hey.
I'll check. That list might still be around.
This chick has some really strange questions. But it was so informative from what I was doing to prepare people for employment that I was like, this eye-opening world. And since then, and before then, I've never encountered this world. But it existed and obviously was doing really good work here in Great Falls that no longer a problem. Or less of a problem. Here's what you as community members and leaders needed to be aware of, which this was years ago, 20 plus years ago, which was really helpful. And I never did anything with my French press idea. So
Coffee.
One thing I'll add, when you talked about Facebook and social media and when we have people that are always commenting out there on things, well, guess what? We're going to post some of this information just so the public is aware. And then automatically you want to, your perception goes into the fact this place is horrible. Well, we're posting stuff that isn't nicely colorful and pretty.
Right.
It's bad stuff that has happened. So when we post things about our officers that do really good things, we're showing that there are other pieces of this that are out there too. And then if you take a look at all the other pages that are out there and people the events that go on in the community and how well those are run and how things balance themselves out, this is a good place. And there's
Yeah.
so much that goes on here. It's at a point where sometimes you just can't keep up with it.
Right.
That's what happens.
Right.
So I did share that there was this fantastic, I'm sure 100% truthful thing on the internet that I learned about the horrible places to live in any state.
Mm-hmm.
But they use a crime statistic. Can you dig into
Crime rate. or
crime
something like
rates
that, and then,
per
like,
1,000 or 100,000? I don't know what it is. But when people look at crime statistics, like national numbers, because everything should boil down into one simple, easy to read snippet of information, what goes into that, and what should we be aware of that isn't being conveyed in that neat, tidy little number?
So we're mandated by law to report our statistics to the state, who in turn report it to the feds.
Okay.
And that would be for homicides, for, the violent type crime things that are out there. So that information is direct from our records management system and the calls that we take. So we do accurately report for the most part, because we've had some struggles. Technology, it works all the time.
Yep, 100% great.
But
Very
all
accurate.
that information gets reported in, and so the stuff that the FBI puts out on crime statistics within certain regions, fairly accurate, I can say.
Okay.
But again, take that with a context. Again, like I told you, we're dealing with 10% of the population creating a lot of these issues. So yeah, there's accurate data that's there, but you can skew statistics in certain fashions and ways. So it all varies.
And I think that word context you used is important too, because every place has its own cultural, socioeconomic dynamics that also play into that if you're looking just straight at a number, or like this TikTok video had, it was a crime rate, but then it was like, so 1 in 20 people will have a crime happen to them. And
Residents
there's,
or visiting.
right.
And I'm like,
those are also very two separate categories.
Why am I always not getting accosted? Like
Right.
that's the thing I
Right.
wonder. Maybe I'm not accostable.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes bad things happen to good people. You just can't.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
nothing you can do to change that. But for the most part, I think you could take a strong poll for a lot of people within the community, and they're like, yeah, we don't see any of this. And when I do
Yeah.
talk to people I know, and they're asking about what things go on, and I start filling them in, it's like, that goes on here?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, much like I think most people would be surprised, because as residents, unless you're like in the right place at the right time, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Unfortunately, some people put themselves in positions where they get in the middle of this stuff, or they're in areas of town where we do have higher criminal activity. And so those are the ones that are probably making those comments. It's not the average everyday person that's going to work, doing the thing that they do, live their life, and they're not out looking for this type of stuff. It's people that potentially are in the middle of all those things that are making comments like that. So they truly are living in that environment, but they don't have the perception that there's other areas in Great Falls that does not occur. And it's not happening to every single person in Great Falls, and everybody's not a victim of this stuff.
Right. And I guess we should also say that we are, we are not in those realms or connected to those groups.
Well, and that was
where that happened. So we also are coming from a different perspective on it as well. And I think we, have to acknowledge that we are also have not been in those positions or surrounded by those environments.
Now, I will say, I believe that there is something to be said about your socioeconomic status within any area of the world and what your perceptions are. We've had this conversation a lot this week for varying reasons. But when you're surrounded by like the people that you hang out with, there are certain environments that you become accustomed to. And if you're to transport someone who's not part of that into either way, like, oh, I'm going to hang out and we're going to have all these cocktail parties on my deck overlooking the river, and we're going to have political fundraisers for the next governor, and they're going to show up. Like, that is a different environment than I'm renting an apartment downtown, working weekends and evenings trying to keep rent, that's a completely different environment. And if you put either person in either one of those environments, it's going to be foreign to them. They're like
It's different perspectives based on environment, experience, what you've grown up with, how you perceive the world.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of factors that go into that.
But, you were talking about maybe it doesn't happen in small towns. My home county, their sheriff's department has started posting how many calls they'll make to different communities within the county. So I look at that every week when they post that because I'm from a town of 5 people. There's inevitably a call there every week. And I'm like, what is happening
with those
like,
5 people?
What is even...
Is your mom getting involved with that?
So I want to call and go, Mom, what's happening? Like there was another call from the sheriff's department. Oh, it's probably that fire north of town. And I'm like, I don't think that makes the sheriff's blotter.
Yeah. And it's interesting because KMON, the AM station, they will do the news, the police stats is what they'll do for surrounding areas.
Bring this up. Yeah.
So it is my husband's favorite portion of the morning show.
So my husband now is responsible for putting that together since he's on KMO. Yeah. So I am a more frequent listener of that station than I ever have been.
And it's always interesting, because we'll have the radio on. When I was a lieutenant on patrol doing the news portion for that. They'd call in and we'd give the stats that we'd pull for the day. Yeah. And you'd always listen to the other areas that they would do, and they'd lay out theirs and then we'd lay out ours. And I'm like, wow, that's
right.
But you're talking about a county and they didn't have much going on. Yeah. And they had some stuff happening, but it still has increased over the years for everybody. I think that it's just the nature of the beast, culture, the generational change, all of the different things that have gone on in time.
Yeah.
People report more and expect law enforcement to do more. So, we're going to get there. Whereas back, many moons ago, you'd be like, I'm not even wasting. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and it was 800 people when I was growing up. And you'd see the county sheriff come through there. And, there were things that it was mostly kids being dumb with MIPs and things along those lines. So it wasn't anything major. Yeah. And it's still very similar back that way.
My favorite ones, I think it's Sheriff Sklerupa, who maybe...
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure which one, but it's one of the smaller counties, and I enjoy him. So there's nothing against him, but I always laugh because it's like, and we found a wallet. So if this is your wallet, come get it. And then there was this dog. We returned it to the owner. And I'm just like, it's so funny because you see the different dynamics between the agencies.
My husband will call when it's the Ponderay County Sheriff's Report. Hey, there's a bear down, and you want to go look for it? No, what? There are bears everywhere in Montana. Why now? Because of the sheriff's report. Do you want to go out and try and stalk a bear? Right. What do you think is a good idea?
Your whole household is this vigilante. That perspective.
He is. But it is interesting to me. I grew up friends with the sheriff's daughter, and I often knew what was happening in town, and then he's like, hey, where's my daughter at? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no clue where she's at.
Nope, not going to be part of that.
We're not having this conversation.
I'm out.
She's your daughter.
Right. It's your job, not mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, though, to see what the different counties respond to.
Between the sheriff's office, which we work closely with, there's a definite difference in call numbers and things but we deal with the same style of things that are going on. Yeah. Friends across the country in law enforcement that I've been to trainings and schools with, and I keep close touch with them, and the stuff that goes on in Maine or Florida or Arkansas or wherever, they're at, is the same type of stuff we're dealing with here. Yeah. It doesn't matter where you go. Criminal activity is criminal activity. It is what it is.
Right.
And so there's stuff happening everywhere. So it's again, I come back to the fact that yes, we have our problems, but unless you're out looking for it, you're probably not going to find it.
Yeah.
So I've heard comments, and I think they're stupid comments, but of course it's my podcast, so I get to say whatever I want. But people will say things like, well, that's an issue, or the homelessness has increased in this certain area because that's where the mission is, or that's because, people are giving out all this money. We can't be the only city in the whole state or country that has a mission or a homeless shelter that's doing great work. Let's just first throw that out there.
Yes.
But that the need continually exceeds the capacity to serve. Mm-hmm. Does that really play into anything? Like, because we have a shelter for homeless people, that now all of a sudden we've got increased crime?
No.
Okay.
No. The shelter is there to help those folks that are struggling in life, that are trying to get themselves together, trying to find a pathway to get and improve their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. The ones that make the choice that actually live on the street, because we have individuals that are the homeless that live on the street, that we're not going to look at them any different than we would look at anybody else. It's the behaviors and the activity is what we address. Mm-hmm. We do not discriminate on any level. If they're on the sidewalk and they're sitting there, if they're not doing anything wrong and we have somebody complaining about them, like, what are they doing? Well, they're just sitting here. I want them to go. We're not the move along police, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
They have every right to be there as well. And so that's that compassion piece, that they're part of the community as well. Now, when they start breaking the law, then we address the behavior. And that's where that piece comes into play. So they might be doing their business in public, urinating in public.
Yeah. No one's allowed to do that.
No, it's unfortunate. No can. But the public drinking, which is not allowed within Great Falls.
Just going to ask that question because I've been seeing, I saw something the other day and I'm like, that's still not legal, right?
No.
Like, and walk around with an open beer.
Yeah.
And I remember being a young patrol officer on the street. We had individuals that were in the alleys drinking all the time. And the call numbers have increased over the years. We have seen more calls for service over the years, and there's been a lot of different reasons why they've increased. But we're still seeing that same type of behavior in the certain areas of town that I saw when I was a young officer on the street. It's not anything different.
Yeah.
People sitting out in the alley, a group of them, they're all drinking. They all had beers cracked open, and go up and we address the issue with an open container citation for it. Or they're urinating in public. We cite them for disorderly conduct. Or they're harassing people and becoming disorderly. So we get another piece on that. So we address the behavior, but if they're not hurting anybody,
yeah, they're allowed to be. They're allowed to be around town.
And in some people, that's where you have to really do that self-check and say, they're different than me, but they're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what bothers people, is that they're different.
Right. And officers also are not just enforcers of the law, but there's so many other kind of hats that officers wear. One of those can be counselor psychologist, which the whole mental health component seems to be increasing, or maybe we are becoming increasingly aware of how that plays a role. What do you see in that component of mental health concerns in our community?
We have
big question.
It's a really big question, and that brings up that point. Is it a bigger problem, or are we just more aware?
Yeah.
And I think I would look at this as it's always been there. We are just more aware. Now, again, when you have generational changes, we now have social media, we have all of that stuff that's out there, the technology base that does drive people to do certain things. There was points in time, and when I was growing up, again, I've been around for a little bit longer on the department.
Walking uphill both ways.
It was one of those things you learn to figure it out. And I think today we have generations that have not been driven to say, it's not going to be fair. This is going to suck a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what we get into, is where some of this stuff, people are starting to have that struggle, not being able to figure out life in general, to be resilient, to be able to figure these things out. So there's two sides to that coin. It could be that it's more aware, but it could be we're seeing some other things. How do we address it? We've partnered with Alluvian Health here in Great Falls, and we have it's called a mental health response team, that instead of sending police to those mental health crises, we have specialists that will go instead. Our dispatchers will ask certain questions, and if there's not a threat that to them, they're going to go handle it. Because why would we need to go handle something that's just solely mental health? And it's something that they need a specialist. And, you know, we get people that are suicidal, and our officers do amazing work talking them down and saying, let us get you help, and let's do that type of, they do really good work on that part of it. So, yeah, it's here. And it's, you see a lot of that on the street, but we have components within the court system that help them work through that mental health piece of it. There's a mental health treatment court through the municipal court that they have options to work with counselors. There's the a drug treatment court, the veterans treatment court that help people try to find their way through the addictions, through the mental health and all of those parts of it. So there are plenty of components out there. It's a full plate. I mean, these folks are just swamped busy, but they're doing great work.
And that helps take some of the load, if you will, off, or helps redirect what your officers are doing to have those people responding to those types of calls as well. I think if I remember correctly, you're at 40-some thousand calls for the year so far.
Holy!
In Great Falls. Can you talk about the range of calls that officers are responding to on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we have everything from welfare checks to thefts to burglaries to assaults to public drinking to disorderly conducts, crashes. That's kind of the wide and broad factor, and we get some of the more severe calls with our that are drug related. Here in the news here just recently, we had our high risk unit, our SWAT unit. They went out and we had some drug dealers in from Detroit, and they got a chance to meet some of our finest.
Those are not the visitors that we want to welcome.
No.
P.S.
They are the visitors that we are glad to see go.
Yes.
Well, and we help them out at our bed and breakfast.
And it's such a beautiful, efficient
the Cascade County
facility.
Bed and Breakfast.
Breakfast.
They got
it's the only one in town.
Yeah, they have an all-inclusive
invite
stay.
only.
But that's some of that type of stuff we see. But that's where our officers and our federal partners and other state partners were sniffing this stuff out, and this is where we nail it. Very good. These guys and gals do amazing work.
So I would assume, and I love assuming things because then, you know, I just become an expert on the things that I create in my mind. But I would have to assume a lot of the calls into your office or into GFPD are resident calls. Do you have a percentage of people who call who are not residents? Like they're traveling, they're at a hotel,
We do. Numbers wise, I couldn't tell you without pulling data, but yes, we have had calls to local hotels of thefts for people visiting and stuff like that. And, I know you had sent me some things to think about when we got to this, and that's a key component. We always ask folks that are visiting, if you come from an area that's really trusting and you just don't have that type of stuff going, we have it here. I hate to say it, but we ask you just to make sure that you take valuable stuff inside your hotel or secure it well in your vehicle, keep it out of plane's view and all the things, because the things that usually happen is people are trusting and they leave unlocked. Yeah. And then they have things stolen, and the unfortunate ones that are stolen are the firearms.
Oh yeah.
And
hunting season.
We do not want that piece to happen, because people come in to hunt.
That creates a whole other issue.
Take your stuff inside the hotel. It honestly is safer in the hotel room, because some people get worried, well, if I get somebody coming in to clean my room, it might get stolen. Yeah. I'd rather have it in there than in my vehicle. Those are the type of things we see when you have out-of-state folks calling, or crashes. They get into a crash on 10th Avenue South, which, for those that don't know, 10th Avenue South is the main corridor that runs through Great Falls.
It's a state highway.
It's a state highway, and it is one of the top, I think probably the first or second busiest roadway within Montana.
Yeah.
So traffic on 10th Avenue South is, it's busy at certain points of the day. And
take River Drive.
Yeah. We always advise people, not that there's anything wrong with things that are happening along 10th Avenue South, but we love to tell people to get off of 10th Avenue South, because that's where you find more of the hidden gems in our community anyway. So, yeah.
That's really just a tactic for you to see more of the city.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
a good one, though.
Yeah, you go along
worth
River Drive, you get
Yeah.
a chance to see the river, you get a chance
Yeah.
to see the Giant
Yeah.
Springs area, all of that. That's a good place to
Yeah.
go down and visit.
You're not going to find the falls on 10th Avenue South.
No.
And that is
No.
the number one question we get asked.
Yes.
Where are the falls?
Speaking of River Drive and geese, what should people do when they're driving and there's goose
Are we
crossings
really
happening?
taking up police officer time
Yes,
with
we
the
are.
duck and geese?
What happens if I
Okay.
hit a goose?
Okay, so you say that, but I will tell you, under my bureau is animal control officers.
Oh.
So I have 3 ACOs, and these 3 gals are very passionate about what they do. But there are parameters of what they will respond to. A goose being hit on the roadway or somebody seeing somebody hit it is not what we deal with.
Don't call.
And you could call Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and they probably will laugh at you.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah,
That
it shouldn't have been
It's
on the roadway.
unfortunate.
It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but that goose should have not gone on the roadway.
Yeah.
And I get that, but our ACOs deal with only domesticated
Yeah.
pets that are allowed within city limits. So
People get real passionate about
Oh, boy.
that issue, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then let me ask.
Yeah. See, it wasn't a dumb question.
No. The cougar sighting that occurred near the Sip and Dip.
What
Was
kind
that
of cougar
too-
are we talking about?
You know what kind of cougar I'm talking about.
you opened the door. 'Cause I was thinking it. You
See,
said it.
Thank you.
And I use
I'm
that
older
word.
than my husband. He says that all the time. Yeah. Anyway.
I use that terminology
Yeah.
because that was the play on words that we used around the Sip and Dip, as it was a cougar. It wasn't actually a cougar, but we had a wild animal, which doesn't happen very often, traversing in the downtown district.
We have wild animals and we have domesticated livestock that are in town. You want to hear a good story on
Yes.
that? So I was in investigations. I was a detective at the time, and there was a cow if it was a steer or a cow that got loose and was on 10th Avenue South.
Oh, no.
Remember this?
And we had a couple of our detectives out, and the funniest story was the 2 of them together. The other one was telling, lean your head out the window and sound like a siren to get people to move. I can't make this up. And they shall remain nameless because they're both retired from the department. But
Oh
one
my
of them is a clown. And those guys were on that end, and they're herding this cow to try to get it to a point where they can get it loaded back up.
Right. It's no place for a cow to be.
It's that type of stuff that happens every once in a while. You're like, what?
This was probably within the last month. I was driving back to work from somewhere on the Northwest bypass side, and I'm sitting there at the stoplight, and I see a wild turkey crossing the street. Like it is a crosswalk time, and he's just like, he had been waiting. I'm stopped. He starts walking across the crosswalk, and I'm like, well, this is odd, It's not
How does
something
he
you
know how to
see
use
every
the
day.
crosswalk?
And then he just sits there. I'm like, is this going to get weird? Because soon the light's going to change. And then, nope, he just walked out, and then he's like, I don't want to be there. And he walked right back to the other side. And that was my Montana Federal Credit Union.
Yeah.
I'm like, pal, you are in the wrong area of town.
We have all sorts of wild animals, anything from deer to turkeys to mountain lions.
There's been mountain
to
lions a few
bobcats,
times. Yeah.
to bears. Let's see what else we've had. Badgers. You name it. We get all sorts of different wildlife in town. And I actually remember one night being on patrol, and I was on night shift, and I live on the west side of Great Falls, and I was leaving home, and where we're at, there's a field that is out by our place. There's a mountain lion walking across the road as I'm driving, and I'm like, well, it honestly, it was maybe 400 yards from my house.
Oh, wow.
So
Well, we
I
had
called my wife and I said, do not let
Get
the dogs out.
in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
grizzlies just south of town in Ulm, and
Yeah.
and we've
Well,
mentioned
they're
numerous
originally
times.
prairie animals, so it's
Yeah.
You
but-
talked about this being the West.
Yeah.
Not the
wi-
old West. It's
but
a
the
wild
Wild West, yeah.
It is.
Now, we've also had the conversation a little bit more lighthearted about the gopher prairie dog
Oh, dear.
situation in
Yeah.
this park. It is massive, and I know this is a park and rec issue. How much
She
trouble
wants
do
your
I get
permission.
into by shooting them off the back deck of this building?
With what?
A 22.
Not good.
Do you agree, though, that the headline in the newspaper that says tourism director arrested for shooting gophers would help tourism? It's going to attract the right people, I think.
Well, people are going to definitely get some comedy out of that one.
We
They're
get
going to
a
want
lot
to
of-
come meet you.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
we
pretty
get a lot
good
of
shot.
guests though who really love the little gophers.
I understand
I
that.
think they're cute.
Well, yeah,
Do you see the hole that is being dug next to our foundation?
I'm not saying I think that. I'm just saying
Well,
that
that's what I
we have
educate
people
them
who
about.
think that.
Yeah.
They eat each other.
Well,
They're
at
gross.
some
yeah,
point.
well, that's nothing but love right there.
Also, urban deer population.
Yeah, not as much an issue here in other communities, but
We have
they
them.
wander around. Yeah.
Will there be a future where we act a little more like Helena and do night patrol for the urban deer?
I don't see it because I know they're out there, but there's not a lot that. I think most of them get taken care of by vehicles because we had up on the west end, up by the TV stations, there were deer up there all the time, and you'd always see them getting greased on the roadway because they'd cross and somebody would just smack them. So the population kept in check over there, and I haven't seen deer up that direction for quite a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
If somebody is visiting and they hit a deer, what should they do?
Oh.
They can call and we can, because obviously their insurance company is going to probably want some form of a deal taken care of. But that is one of those things, since it's a loan piece, we're not going to cite anybody for that one. They can call and we may give them a form to fill out, at least so they have a case number. They can do that. But most of the time it's just contact your insurance company and then work through that, because if you disable your vehicle, call us. We'll make sure we provide some safety and security for you while we get a tow truck going, coming your direction. But if your vehicle's still operable and you can go, then roll forward and call your insurance.
If I'm visiting from out of town and I haven't had a lot of interaction with wildlife and I see a mountain lion roaming around town, or I just want to go pet one of those cute little gophers, what should I not do?
Okay, if anybody has been paying attention to the news in Montana about otters,
Oh, yeah.
guess what?
I
Gophers,
love otters. It's,
gophers like to bite.
Yeah.
They're going to run away probably. Mountain lions, they're not
also
big.
like to bite.
They're not big kitties to go give a hug to. Stay
Yeah.
away. If you see a wild animal, don't go near it. I'm telling you, if anybody has paid attention to videos that are out there from Yellowstone Park or
But
any
as
of
we
those
learn, people don't pay attention.
Yeah,
So this is why it might sound ridiculous.
It sounds ridiculous, but
about
the common sense factor needs to kick in. If it's wild, don't touch it. Even if it's a domestic pet that's out and about, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if that animal will
Rabies.
bite you. We don't know if that animal might scratch
Friendly.
you, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
There
yeah,
are
good point.
snakes in
Yep.
Great Falls, in the area we live in the up out of town. The neighbors killed a, I think it had 10 rattles on it. So it was a
my
big,
gosh.
big rattlesnake in their backyard.
Ugh. Yeah. We live on the edge of town too, and that's what I'm terrified about for my dogs.
We've gotten people who call us, and because they're prevalent out at the Maroney trailhead for Sulphur Springs on the River's Edge Trail, which isn't that far, but we've had people call and they're like, I don't know who you need to tell, but there's a rattlesnake in the parking lot. I'm like, yep, that's where it lives.
Yeah, that's its home. Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, just go the
No.
other
Keep-
direction from it. Don't
Yeah.
try to touch it. So,
No.
I do often want to go, who do you think I'm calling to tell that information to? Why did you think you needed to call me and tell me that? Well,
Right.
I just thought maybe you'd want to know.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you.
if they
Yeah.
call us and we know what it is, our dispatcher's like, animal control does not respond to that. Well, then who does? You could try Fish and Game, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're not going to come out. They've got
Right.
a lot
That's-
bigger things to deal with.
You're
instead
in
of a
their
snake.
living room.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. It's their home, and that's what you should expect. Unfortunately,
Where
that's
do
an
you want me
option.
to
You have
put
to be
them?
aware of that. Right.
Right.
I did not expect us to go down the
The
animal,
animal trail
road today.
Yeah. Well,
It's also
It
it's a part
happens. Yeah.
of what we do here and what we
Yeah.
see. So
Huh.
I do want to ask, and this is one of the questions I posed to you, and I don't know if there's an answer to it or not. But are there any odd or maybe unusual rules or things about our community that people should be aware of?
Like they can't drive by themselves on a Sunday
Right,
with a
something-
hat on.
Yeah, like something like that. Well, no public drinking. We covered that one.
that probably is the biggest thing because
Okay.
people that'll come to, let's say, the downtown area, and go to some of the nicer bars that have opened up and things like that. People have that inclination to want to walk from one bar to the other with an open container.
Don't do that.
Don't do it. We're probably not going to, we might see it, say, hey, you can't have that and get rid of it. But it's one of those things, what it does is when you have that type of stuff, that creates issues sometimes with our homeless population that have been drinking. Now that's going to, they're going to want you to go, hey, can you get me one?
Sure.
We've had things like that happen before. And so we don't want those type of things to go on. There are events that happen in Great Falls that allow that, that are, secured off by barricades that you can
Night
have.
market tomorrow night.
That's
Night market.
right.
Tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know when this is coming out. I have
next week. So
Okay, never
they've
mind.
passed, but next summer they will return. Yes.
So I think that's probably the most unique one. I was off the top of my head trying to think of any other odd ones that visitors would have to encounter and deal with. And I can't off the top of my head
think of
anything
else.
that's really weird. But that's the biggest one we just want people to pay attention to.
Sure.
In my 8 years of doing this, I think I've been asked maybe 3 times total, can you drink and drive? And I'm like, no.
Why is that a rule?
Where in the world?
Is that okay?
Where have you been where they're like, drink as much
Go
as you
for
want
it.
and drive anywhere you want?
That doesn't mean people don't do it. And unfortunately, that is one of our bigger issues in Montana.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to.
And again, that comes back to that open container piece. You're not going to be in a vehicle drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Is it illegal to have a beer and go drive? No, because you have to be at a certain level of intoxication, and that varies a little bit. I mean, some people have the tolerance and handle things better, but your blood alcohol is still going to raise up there. It's 0.08 for the legal limit in Montana, and once you hit that and above, you can be, but you still could be arrested for under a 0.08 based on behaviors and things that we see if you're driving and swerving and you hit something or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So it just because people look at this as, it's a 0.08, you still can be impaired.
Yeah.
So
If I'm a passenger in a vehicle and the driver is not drinking, but they're driving and I'm the passenger, are you going to answer this question?
I'm going to answer this in two segments. By the letter of the law, it says you cannot have an open container within the city limits of Great Falls, in a vehicle, outside the vehicle, anything. By the spirit, the driver's being responsible. We're not looking to find somebody. One, we're busy enough with other things going on.
Yeah.
That's not what we're looking for. If that,
believe it or not, no one's sitting there like trying to spy.
We're
for
not
those
looking
things.
for that type of thing. But we're looking for traffic infractions, things along those lines.
Safety.
That safety things.
Yeah.
So if somebody's driving and they're not drinking and they're being that responsible, sober driver, and somebody in the passenger seat has an open container of beer, I guess enjoy it. Just don't be stupid and throw the can out the window.
That becomes littering.
Then we have a different set of things that go on. So.
There you go.
See, I'm just getting a lot of questions
yes, you
answered for my
are.
own personal.
She's asking about making meth and drinking while driving.
So
I was not asking about making meth.
When I hear the phrase, I'm asking for a friend.
I'm the friend.
This is the friend. Yeah, she's the friend. Talking about being downtown and interacting downtown, you were talking about the open container and just the interacting with maybe the people who call the streets of downtown their home. Can you speak a little bit to panhandling and how we would advise visitors to handle that?
You came way more prepared than I did for this episode.
Well, it's solely because these are just coming to me. It's just based on the fact that I have a background with this. It's not.
So there is a good probability that during the warmer months of the year, you're going to be confronted by somebody asking if you have $1 or have some change. For the most part, you tell them no, they walk away. There's a couple that we have that get all huffy and they might throw a blanket or piece of clothing at you and they turn around and walk away. If you encounter that or they continue to harass, that's where those 3 numbers come into play, 911. We come down, that's where they're going to get cited for it because that now falls into the disorderly piece. If they ask and you tell them no and they turn around and walk away, no harm, no foul, just... It is what it is. I've had it happen to me, And I'm just like, no. And I turn around and walk away, and they go on their way too.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that, it's there. And
Yeah.
I can't say that, oh, you'll never encounter that.
Right.
You will if it's warm, because we have a transient population that works in that downtown area, that lives down there, and just part of what it is.
I'll also throw out real quick, I lived downtown for 8 years. I cannot remember a time when I was addressed and asked that question, and I lived down there. So it kind of just
I've
depends.
worked downtown for probably 18 years total.
Mm-hmm.
The only weird thing that ever happened to me is someone asked me if I wanted to buy some handmade earrings that they had made. I'm like, well, they're not my style.
Yeah.
But the
At least
weirdest
they're trying to
encounter
sell you
I
a product. Yeah.
Well, and that's just it. It hasn't been downtown. It's been like at the grocery store. I'll have someone stop me and ask me if I want to buy some handmade socks. Like,
You're kidding. Although I've never had anybody ask me that.
really?
Somebody's knitting socks.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
It's like at the farmer's market, but that's
No.
legitimate vendors.
So we've mentioned this before, a Hooterite population. I don't know if we've done a whole episode on what that is, but they make a lot of handcrafts. And I have had women approach me and go, would you like to buy some slippers or handmade socks? I'm like, nope.
Huh.
I just don't have any desire for that.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that's ever happened to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I will say it has, we've seen a little bit of an uptick in some of that panhandling activity. And it's only because, just like every other place in the country, we're also dealing with kind of a recruiting shortage a little bit on officers. And so we're busy. And so we are a little bit short staffed, and we're trying to make sure that we do it so that they cue in on that. And they know that we're not down there as much as we would like to be. And so these things happen a little bit more, and the Business Improvement District has been asking us, hey, when are we going to curb this? And we're trying to come up with some solutions to work those things. So,
But
they're handling it.
isn't there still like community people with purple shirts that go around and not vigilante justice, but like are community representatives from the police department that have a little bit of education on how to help?
Yeah, we have a volunteer program within our department.
Okay.
So we have community members that volunteer their time. They come in and they do a variety of different things. They'll do downtown patrols just to be that eyes and ears for us, and then they'll call in if it's something that's fairly egregious that we need to deal with. They handle our abandoned vehicles. I've learned there's two things in this town that will drive people crazy: abandoned vehicles or parking issues. And pet issues.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that will drive people over the edge. And they go out and deal with the abandoned side of things. And so they're busy doing all those type of stuff. They help us in many other ways on the department. We have chaplains. We have had a doc assigned to our SWAT unit that was a doctor here in Great Falls, is volunteering his time to be part of it. So he was practicing medicine in his normal job, and then he'd come in and train with us, and he'd get to shoot guns and practice medicine.
Well, hey, good
So it
deal
was
for
great.
him. Yeah.
They also listen to jail phone calls for our detectives, which that can be really interesting.
Ooh, we should get that guy in on the podcast.
I'm telling
More
you.
importantly, how do you sign up for that? Because that now sounds. I mean, I spend a lot of my free time on podcast episodes where I'm listening to jail conversations, so might as well do it for our fine city.
Some of the colorful things they get to hear, they probably will wish they could unhear.
I'm sure. Oh my goodness.
But that's what our community. We have members that come and do that. So we do have people out there watching for us and helping us out. But again, it's on whatever time they have available from their normal lives, and so they'll put as much as I can to help us.
There is no longer a dedicated downtown officer,
No.
correct? That's not a thing, but everyone's patrolling and have these volunteers.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, that's just because of restructure we've done to make sure we have people to answer calls.
Yeah. Are there any sections of town, you maybe alluded to this a little earlier, that are considered unsafe, or maybe another way to frame this is that you would advise visitors to avoid?
Steer clear of.
Yeah.
So, I talk about the downtown area.
This is
And
one of
it's
the main
safe
places
as-
we send people.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just
It
go.
is, yeah.
It's great.
It really is,
And I preface this, when I talk about the downtown area, it's the Central Avenue corridor. Because Central Avenue has all of the businesses and all of the things that are going on the different restaurants, bars, shops, the unique places to go visit. That is really Great Falls. Central Avenue falls right into this area when we refer to, it's called DDAX, or Data Driven Approach to Crime and Traffic Safety. We kind of have it on hold at this point, but it's a specific area that we measure numbers of calls, traffic crashes, things along those lines in that area. That's where, so there's a higher level and higher number of calls that are happening there. And we would dedicate officers to work that area to lower certain things.
Okay.
Because of our staffing issues, we've had to back off of that. We still have a team that addresses some of that stuff. It's called our directed enforcement team. They go and handle some of those things from time to time just to keep that little bit of pressure out there. But that lower north, lower south, and you get more into the residential side, and it's, I wrote it down here because I couldn't remember the exact
If you
things.
need your glasses, feel free to
I
grab
do.
them.
Wow, calling him out.
You know what?
Well, I didn't want him to forget that they were there.
Because if you look, I'm stretching my arms. Well,
Do you want me to hold
I
him?
can read. So it's Park Drive, which is down right next to Gibson Park, all the way up to 15th Street, and the other borders is 6th Avenue North to 6th Avenue South. So those are the areas that, we have measured call numbers that we have more activity there, more criminal activity that occurs. And when we're able to do enforcement efforts in that, you flood it with officers to be able to run traffic, and it's amazing numbers start to dwindle.
Yeah. And this would be
Off of the
Yeah.
areas
Off of
where
the-
our
it's
visitors
off
would
of
be
Central
going.
Avenue.
Yeah.
So-
this is a very abnormal place you would be hanging out.
Right. This is not
And-
somewhere you would randomly find
Yeah,
yourself
well,
while
no.
you're visiting.
There's
yeah.
nothing for shops other
Right.
than the only place that I think is in there is the Charlie Russell Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But that's its own
it's like
Complex.
yeah.
It's right
I
right
see what
on
you're
the
saying.
outside edge of that north side of it.
Yeah.
So that one really isn't affected, but
Right.
really everything else is all residential. There's nothing else down there. Central Avenue has all its piece, some on First Avenue North, a very, very minimal amount on First Avenue South. But that area there really does not have, it's not unsafe for people to be in. You're going to run into your transient population.
Sure.
It is what it is.
Right.
But as far as people going to come up and beat you up and mug you and
You're
all that,
right.
no.
These random
Yeah,
crimes.
it's not something. There's anywhere you go that could happen. I mean, you could go over to any of the big box stores here in town, and you could have somebody, beat you up because they want to take this from you. It could be anywhere.
Right. Anywhere USA for that matter. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's
Never experienced that. Well,
Yeah.
there's just so much in my world I've not experienced.
That's good. Yeah. This is maybe a bigger piece across the nation, and this is something we hear about more often, is this issue of human trafficking. And obviously trafficking happens in Montana. It happens in our region. Can you speak to the prevalence of this kind of? Is it random? Is it certain crowd? And
How
what do
big of a-
people?
yeah.
And
How
then
big of a deal is this?
yeah, and then I guess the follow up then to that is, what can visitors be doing or be watching for residents to be aware of that issue?
Because
So-
the internet says a lot of things like
Yeah.
everyone's getting taken
Like
from
everyone's
rest
gonna
stops.
get
and-
and it's one of those things that you have to be paying attention to see these type of things. It's not like people are just walking down the street and snatching people up,
in the big white van.
or the big black van
Yeah.
from what was the old school,
Yeah.
they grab, for the
I mean, that being
Never
said,
seen that
don't take
happen
candy
other
from
than a
van.
movie.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, it is here. It's in the state.
Yeah.
If anybody ever has paid attention to the news, we have the Native American reservations, and they have a problem with the missing
Murdered
murders.
Indigenous
Yes.
women.
Yes.
That plays right into the fact that probably a higher number than most realize are trafficked for sex trafficking. I would guess would be the primary deal. You may see something that would be involved with like the for labor, illegal labor force trafficking type stuff like that. But what to look for? I guess if you're in a restaurant, you're in a hotel, and you see, both male and female are trafficked, but it's prevalently female. I think that happens too. If you see a male and has a female with them or a couple females and doing all the talking for them and won't allow them to interact, or if they interact, it's very rehearsed and very scripted, that's a cue.
Okay.
And that's a red flag right there that something's not right. I mean, that's overt control over a person because they might look, their clothes might not be as clean, or they're not as well taken care of as anybody else would be. Those are things that are factors, and it could merely be that the guy's just not a nice person and he has a family that he's overbearing on, but it also leads into the fact that could be potential human trafficking that has occurred for sex trafficking type stuff.
So do we take action? Do we take things into our own hands?
No. Don't be vigilantes.
Stop doing that.
It's one of those things that, they can talk to the desk staff if they're uncomfortable calling, but if they're comfortable calling, call 911.
Okay.
Let them know who they are, where we're at. This is what I observed. I don't know for sure what it is. Gather as much information as you can.
Yeah.
Call 911. If we show up and we talk to them and we try to figure out and determine there's nothing there, that's what it is. But the other piece of it for us, sometimes it is very, very difficult for those being trafficked to give that information because they are in a position where this is probably better than what they came from. That's the part that is very sad. And in my career, I was in investigations, and I worked 10 years with the sex crimes, internet crimes against children, all the child pornography stuff, and it's prevalent out there. It's horrible stuff, and you realize that some people and some of these victims, they are feeling better off in that position being trafficked than going back to where they came from. So report it. If you see it, if it doesn't look right, most people use common sense. If it doesn't look right, call.
Yeah.
It's not hurting anybody. We're going to check into it. And if it's nothing, it's nothing. But I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah. So you obviously see a whole cross section of this city and the world that in general, Shannon and I don't witness. Does that skew what you see other places? Like, do you constantly then see people being trafficked? Because I ask this, my husband and I have a great loving relationship, but he will joke every now and again. Out in public, he'll go, "Woman, don't speak unless you are spoken to." And then I will start laughing. So most people know, they've got a weird sense of humor.
Warped.
But in certain situations, are you then oversensitive to seeing some of that, and that's why you just hunker in your house and you never go out in public? Or
well, I do like to be at home. My wife's a teacher, so she has been teaching she's going into her 30th year of teaching.
Wow.
And so the two of us, when we first met, she was kind of guarded to the world, didn't realize that all of these things went on. That there was this stuff out there.
Right.
And now we go someplace and I people watch.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, and I think everybody will do that to an extent.
Yeah, but you see different
But you
things.
do it differently.
Yeah.
You're trained to be a people watcher.
When you become a law enforcement officer, cops are one of those things. As you do this long enough, there are certain things that you will always do. When we go out to eat, she knows where I'm going to sit. And she will not sit in a spot where I can't see the door.
I do that. My husband's not in law enforcement, but he's
got a brain
he's done
like
a lot
that.
of, but yes, he does that. And the funny thing is, I am obviously not in law enforcement at all, but having one of the benefits of having worked with GFPD for so long, I hear these things and I try to then be more aware of my surroundings. And I know, I don't want to sit where I can't see the door. The funny thing is, so where you're sitting right now in this podcast studio, the door is behind you, the voices of the guests are behind you. And
It's
in my
gotta
head,
be.
I'm like, that is probably an uncomfortable spot that we put you in from your background. Most people wouldn't care. But because I have a brain like that, my husband thinks like that. I know that cops think like that.
When I sat down, I'm like, I don't like this spot, but I'm going to sit
and
here.
I've been thinking about that, especially when we had guests come in.
I could have moved you
Yeah,
to
you-
the other side.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
sat
You
here,
did
I'm like-
place yourself there.
I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I was going to sit here because
the window's behind you.
the door, I can see it, but
Yeah. But that is interesting. But yes, anyway, you were saying, you have that relationship. She knows where
His
she's
skin
going to
is
sit.
crawling.
I know.
Has been
It's so
for an
funny
hour.
because I thought about that and I was like, every cop I know
well.
that would be driving them insane to not be able to look towards the door.
I'm like, I'm okay. I
'Kay.
got this because I'm watching eyes.
Yep.
I see you two looking all the
Yeah.
time, so I'm good.
Yeah.
We're fine. Don't worry.
We got Phil out there.
but-
He'll take them down.
But the interesting piece is, you pay attention as an officer. The longer we do this, and you just develop that mindset, and you start to watch for certain things, and you pick up on things as a police officer quicker than somebody that's an average person sitting there. And it's a good thing, but it's also something that's a hindrance at time, because that's what your brain is thinking. I'm like, well, I'm going to make sure
Shut it off.
No. And it's kind of funny. So my daughter had been living, she moved to Arizona. I went to school down there for esthetician, and so she was down there for about a little over 3 years, and she wanted to move back. So this past Easter, we went to Arizona to help move her back, and so we were going to load a van and drive back. And most people go on a trip and they're just pack their bag, and we were going for just a few days. I made sure I packed a bag, and I got a case, and I had my sidearm with me, and I took a gun with me. We flew down and we drove back. And Carrie, my wife, she's like, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Do you realize you pay attention to the headlines out there and you see what goes on in this world?" I said, "With you two, if it was just me, I'd probably be okay. But I said, you two,
'Cause
So
you're responsible for
it
them.
is one of those things that's how we're wired.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one of us on the department are wired this way. I don't care, male, female,
Yep.
new to old, we're all wired the same way.
Yeah. One of my best friends, a woman, she was on the force for GFPD, Cassie, and now she's on the reserves in Lewis and Clark County. But yeah, and she's like that too. I mean, she's not that much. She's about the same height as I am, small female, but she's got that. I mean, she would always care. She'd always be looking, and that's probably from hanging out with her too. I just like pick up on these things, but yeah. She's like
I'm
that
just
too.
oblivious to the world. That's the way I live.
So that
Wander through the world unaware.
So maybe that leads us to some good questions maybe to end it with is, what should people just be doing in general, whether they're in their own communities or traveling? Just some things. How can we increase our awareness just to be safe in general and on the lookout, especially in this, what feels like an increasingly turbulent world?
Well, if you're traveling, make sure somebody knows where you're going. That was one of the first things as I go into these questions that you were, looking to pose for this whole time here. And we got on animals and everything else, and I had to ad lib. But anyway,
I'm telling you, I don't know why she.
I like it. I think that's great. We talk about badgers, gophers, turkeys. It was good.
Yeah.
But letting somebody know where you're going, when you're leaving, when you get there, no matter what it is, if you're even flying, let somebody know, because that way, if you don't call, and people forget, and now in the age of cell phones, you can call at any time, but letting them know kind of an estimated time you probably get there or things along the way. That way, at least somebody is on the lookout for you.
Yeah.
As you're traveling down the road, we have and I'm horrible about this. I'm in town and I will get so frustrated at other drivers.
So weird.
That doesn't happen to any of us.
My wife's like, you get so mad, and I'm like, I'm not even going to make the comments that I usually make.
We can imagine.
But it's one of those things. If you're driving, I'll just use the word, there are idiots everywhere we go.
Yeah.
When somebody's driving and they're being not so smart driving, try to take that high road, be the eagle, not the duck. And fly above it and just keep on going.
I'm going to tell my husband that. Be the eagle.
Yeah. Don't be the duck. You don't quack about it all the time. Just be the eagle, soar right over it and keep going.
I like that. Okay.
But those are type of things you're going to encounter that. No matter what you do, you encounter poor driving habits. Try to be the bigger person and just don't worry about that and just move forward. I talked already about, as you're visiting a location and leaving valuables in your vehicle, make sure you secure those. Try to find a place to put them that it's out of sight. Take them into the hotel room with you. it's just cheap insurance. If your vehicle gets damaged, it's one thing, but when people steal stuff out of your vehicle and damage it, now it's double insult on it. So,
and when people visit in the winter, or maybe they're just from a warmer place and come in the fall and think that 50 degrees is cool, talk a little bit about, or when it's really hot and you want to keep your car cold, but warming up cars, leaving it out there, like you still got to leave it. You still got to leave it locked because it's an opportunistic.
Yeah,
crime.
We're in the age now of cars that you can do remote start, and it's a lot better than it ever used to be. But when we would have a rash during certain times of the year and years past of vehicles being stolen in the winter. And I know there were people from out of town visiting that had happened to. I do recall a couple of instances. When you start your vehicle and it's the old way that you had to leave a key in it, you better lock the doors and have an extra key to get it, because I assure you, we've had the criminals wandering through Great Falls like, oh, it's a warm car. They're taking it to just take a joyride to stay warm to go do this, and we'll find it on the other end of town someplace. But make sure you secure your vehicle if you're going to do that, and have the appropriate weather gear with you. That's the worst possible thing that could happen if you are a visitor to Montana in the winter. We have guys that hunt. Most of them are prepared. But if you're visiting here for whatever the case is, make sure you have extra jackets. You have blankets. You have
Fritos.
Fritos. Yeah. I was going to say a Snickers, because then you don't get crabby if you just eat
go.
a Snickers and you'll be fine.
Well, Fritos you
Like
can
those
eat and burn for heat.
Okay, well,
That's why Fritos are my
Smart.
go-to, because it's not a snack I'm going to eat normally. So it's like I'm getting hungry. I'm like, I got those Fritos in the bag. They're really
you leave
just
them for emergencies.
If things get bad, I got the Fritos.
Yeah.
They're not my first choice, but
That's smart.
So having that type of stuff is super good. But I'll have to remember that about Fritos, that they'll burn. I forgot that.
Yeah, it's a
also
good
concerning. Makes you think twice before you eat them next.
Yeah, exactly.
They're great. I mean, they'll keep you alive.
Yeah, right.
Extra water, kitty litter, or
okay. And why the kitty litter? Because people might not understand that.
Well, because if you get stuck on ice or in something, you can pour that out and helps get your traction to move you.
It's that little known fact that kitty litter will help like gravel.
Yeah.
So it's an easier thing to grab, keep with
I was
you.
raised by smart people, and the back of my trunk was full of survival gear all the time.
Yeah.
And every tool I needed to, overhaul an engine at the drop of a hat.
Yes.
Daughter of a mechanic.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've always have all this extra stuff, and my wife said, you need a bigger box in the back of your truck. I'm like, I do.
Yep.
You got chains, you've got jack, you've got
shovel,
tools, shovel. I got a sleeping bag in the back of my truck. And
I have all of those things. I need to add kitty litter though.
Yeah.
That is a smart thing
That is
to
the
have.
one I don't have. Yeah. The backpack ready to go.
And let's say you get off on a road in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
You're lost. You can't find your way, and you run out of gas or whatever the situation is. You're like, well, I'll go retrace my steps outside of the vehicle on foot. Let's not do that, folks. Stay with your vehicle.
Yeah, just stay with your vehicle. It's the simplest way, because what happens is people are like, well, I'll take the shortcut and I can get over this hill. And if they're in the mountains, it's not a shortcut, and you're going to end up in a really, really bad position in an unsafe way.
Hypothermic, naked, laying in a snowbank.
Naked.
Nobody wants to do that.
Why are you naked?
Because you get hot.
Oh, okay.
Well, and then you can use technology though too to help find your way out of things. Because on my phone I have that. It's Onyx. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yep.
I don't know how I've ever survived working in the
that.
mountains without Onyx.
Yeah. So there's apps out there.
Oh yeah, it's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So
any other safety tips in general? Be observant of your surroundings.
Just pay attention around you. If something doesn't look right, I mean, I don't want people to stereotype people, but you're going to see something that just doesn't look right, and you're going to be uncomfortable with the situation. It's probably good to maybe remove yourself out of that area.
Yeah.
You go to bars in town, and I don't think there's a bar that would be exempt from this to happen, but people drink too much, and then they want to start getting loud, obnoxious, and pick fights, and that's everywhere. We've gone to. There are certain.
I've been that person.
There.
I have been that person, they've been like, I think your time here is done.
Oh wow.
Okay, that's probably a good idea. I'll come back some other time.
They're like, no, maybe don't come back.
I'll have to. Yeah. See.
You really
I'm telling you,
check your
there's
records.
lists
I'm gonna have to
and
look.
places.
records, yeah.
Rebecca has
Yeah.
been, yeah. But remove yourself from those situations when you can, because you just don't want to be an unintended victim of something to go bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you're just there and you get a bottle thrown at you by mistake.
Right.
It
On
wasn't, you weren't the
accident.
intended
Right.
target, but
Yeah.
those things happen, and it's people want to try to intervene and stop all these things. And while we appreciate that, you put yourself in great risk, particularly if you're a visitor here. We don't want to see you get injured with anything. And things happen, but most of these bars, they have really good staff that keep things in line. And those are the things that you just go out and you enjoy yourself, have some beverages and enjoy a meal. And, you probably won't ever know that there's anything else going on in this town would be in a negative fashion.
Is there anything, especially I'm asking this, and I'm not saying
For
it's
a friend.
justice for a friend, but as a female, are there especially, but for anybody, are there things that I can do, behaviors I can have if I'm any time of day walking down the street, but maybe it's late, I'm leaving the bar, I'm walking to my car, that I can do to present myself as less of an
Target?
opportunity or a victim? Like, is it helpful to be have my phone handy? Is that a deterrent? Am I making sure I'm looking around? Like, what are body language type things I can do to make myself
Hold your
less
key
of a
like
target?
a shiv.
Yeah. Like, what are things I can do?
Number one, if you can travel and be with somebody else, that's the best way to do it. If you can, travel in pairs, that's the best way to work it. But if you have to be by yourself and you're going, we don't see those attacks happen. It's just not a prevalent thing in Great Falls.
Yeah, thankfully. Yeah.
But the things that you talked about, having your phone readily available, and that there's the emergency ability on that phone, that will cue it up to get a geographical location to find you.
Yeah.
Letting
I'm going to be honest. I have pretended in situations, I have my phone out. I pretend like I am talking to someone because I'm like, well, somebody sees I'm like not totally by myself. I'm also like making sure I'm walking at a brisk pace. I am actively looking around, but I will pretend talk to someone sometimes while also still, I'm like, okay, well, this person needs to know.
What has happened in your childhood that has caused you to act this way?
Nothing. I just had like a mom that was making sure I was like smart and protected. And so these are just, like if I sense anything, I'm like, I'm going to pretend like I'm still going to look around, because sometimes people are way too involved in their phone and then you can become more of a target if you're like distracted. But I'm like, I'm pretend talking to someone while I'm looking around, so it looks like I am paying attention, and also there's someone on the line that if you come up and attack me, someone else will know.
Yep. I mean, she's not wrong.
I'm slightly paranoid.
Well, I'm not saying she is, but clearly we came from
Slightly
different
paranoid. Yeah.
families and locations of the world.
Yeah. The biggest thing
I'm
is
overhauling engines alongside the road. She's pretend talking on a phone. So
I look under the car, make sure no one's under there to grab you. I know it sounds.
It's definitely, I can say, never having done one of these podcasts before, this interaction is fun. It's fun to watch.
oh my
And listen to it,
goodness.
yes.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is paying attention to what's going on around
Yeah,
you.
Rebecca.
I mean,
Obviously.
it is it's no joke. People will come out on their phone and they're just walking and looking on
too
their phone.
ingrained
Number
in
one,
it.
I don't know how they do it, because I can barely
Without
walk.
tripping.
I can barely walk and talk at the same time,
Right.
let alone walk
Yeah,
and
it
be on
is
a
a
cell
skill.
phone.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and I can't see the cell phone, so I'd have to hold it right here.
Like, have your wife walk ahead of you.
Yeah. But those are just things. Let somebody know when you're leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're leaving someplace, just text them. Say, hey, I'm leaving. I'm heading home, or heading here, or whatever the case is. Because again, those are type of things that, my wife and I have established that if I go someplace, I just let her know, hey, I'm leaving. I'll be home in a little while. Or she does the same thing.
Yeah.
It's something that we've done just to know and be cognizant of what's going on and where you're at and what's happening. My kids, I've even got them ingrained in it. They're adults, and they text all the time. Yeah, we're home, or I'm leaving.
So
I
someone
have
knows.
friends that do that every time we leave their house. Text when you get home. Like they're my mom.
You always forget, don't you? You don't text, do you?
No, I do, because if I don't, they'll call me.
Accost you with it. Yeah.
They'll it'll be 3:00 in the morning, and they'll call.
Did you
Hey,
make
hey,
it?
did you make it home? Yeah,
But isn't that nice? You have friends that care.
I guess. No, I want to talk about natural disasters. We've got our friend Matt Robb, who runs the Wild Hares, been on the podcast. He's got a property in Maui that we talked about, the Dirty Monkey, really impacted by the fires. So hearts out to Matt. But one of the questions we do get asked is, not often, but people are concerned about natural disasters, not necessarily when Yellowstone will explode because, it's a super volcano and what to do in that area.
You don't have to worry about that.
But forest fires or things like that cause disruptions or safety concerns for people. Probably not necessarily your area, more sheriff's department stuff, but you want to tackle that?
Yeah.
How to be prepared for when Yellowstone blows?
Yeah. Well, when Yellowstone blows again,
no one will have to be worried. We're all gone.
We're all in that creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing we probably would encounter here would be flooding.
Okay.
With the Missouri River, and you think about where with the way the Missouri flows upstream or coming from upstream, all the dams that are on there, there's a high propensity that could have a dam breach someplace along the way, and we could get inundated with water here. And we've actually done exercises with Northwest Energy and reviewed those type of plans, and we have all that at our 911 center about all the different things that could potentially go wrong.
Oh wow!
That is something
that's reassuring to know that that's thought about,
Yeah.
and there's a plan for that. Though, as someone who lives here,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be prepared for that now on your walk.
I'm not as worried about that.
Yeah.
I want you to wear that airline vest for water landing. Every
So I
time
have
you
my
leave,
little, like,
Yeah, the little yellow one.
just pull it.
She's walking along, got her hand.
I'm
on
ready.
it. Here we
I'm
go.
ready.
I'm ready.
Boom.
Oh, this makes me sound like a safety freak. I just trying to be prepared and aware.
But with the flooding would be our biggest thing, and I guess for people that would be visiting in that early springtime frame to understand that could happen very rapidly. That water could come to, we could be 1 hour difference from when you crossed a bridge to the next hour. We're not going to do it and not let you through because we've got flooding, and that impacts Great Falls because we have a lot of lower area within the community that flooding is going to encompass. And unfortunately, we're right close to that floodplain.
Yeah.
The police department is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to that, having the river run through here, we get often asked about swimming in the river or recreating on the river.
Mm-hmm.
And my reaction has always been, I don't know how good of a swimmer you are, but we got a pool. You can go there, but it's not really a good plan.
No, the rivers. The river is very unpredictable because it has undertows. It has different, that it's changing currents all the time. And people will, it looks like it's moving slow. That river is moving way faster than most realize. And unfortunately, over the years, I've responded to and heard of, and we've had there's where there's been drownings. Mm-hmm. And it's a tragic deal when we have somebody that's out there in the river trying to swim and they drown. A lot of times alcohol is involved.
Damn beer again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So the river's a great place to be around, but respect it really, really heavy because it's not a safe thing to go try to swim across the river. Mm-hmm. And if you're on jet skis or anything like that, using life vests and things are of the utmost importance to have that available.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking. I mean, this applies to all of the river, but we're especially talking about in town here. I mean, there's you can go West Bank Landing area, you can kayak around there and up. Or you go past Maroney Dam and you can get in the water there. But because people ask, can I go out on the bottom? I'm like, I would
you
not recommend that. There's a bunch of dams there.
Broadwater Bay. There's people that'll go down there, and there's places along the way you can kind of wade out in the water. Oddfellows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In there, it's slower there, but you still have to respect that water.
Yes.
We have people that'll go further up on River Drive, outside of Great Falls towards.
White Bear Island.
White Bear, thank you. And that's where we start to see people, succumb to drownings and stuff like that because that's some dangerous water up there.
Yeah. So just be aware, especially in the springtime when it's tends to be higher, especially this last year was high for quite a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've learned a lot about ourselves today. Mostly about you.
Try to be prepared and observant. I don't know what the problem is.
Just know as you're out and about, if you're out and you see somebody walking with their phone and talking, It's probably Shannon.
Yeah. Or looking at me like, I'll just go, I'm not going to hurt you. That's fine.
Or if you see a gal under a hood working on something,
It's
we
probably
know who it
Rebecca.
is. It's Rebecca.
Yeah. Or driving down the street in the passenger seat, having a lot of fun.
I don't do that in city limits.
Okay, in city limits.
Yeah, there you go. I like how she clarified it. In city limits.
Yeah.
The number of incidences that I've caused in my home city has been 0.
With the 5 of you?
No, this city
Oh,
where
this
I live.
town. Oh, I thought you meant
Yes.
the one you grew up in. Yeah.
No. I didn't cause any incidences there either.
I have a hard time believing that. You
I mean,
just
there
said you
was-
got kicked out of a bar for being too loud and obnoxious.
Where was not
that?
kicked out.
You were
I was
asked to leave?
asked to maybe wrap up my party and take
Oh.
it elsewhere.
Okay.
And I was kindly obliged
yeah.
because the situation did require me to remove the people I was with. And I was like, that makes sense. I can see where this is not
It
comfortable for other
required
people.
you to remove the people you were with?
Yes.
So you weren't the problem.
No.
Okay.
So you think what you want about me, but
I have one final question. Do you
Okay.
have any stories, like just weird situation, funny situation stories from your time on patrol that you would want to end
Just
our time
one.
with together? Or a couple. I don't, just thought we could end on like
nearly
a funny
30 nearly 30
I
years.
know.
See the problem with this is I have a poor memory of the bad,
That's
even
the
the
good
funny
thing,
and
yeah.
the funny things that have happened over the years.
That's fair.
I said, and I talked about the one with the cow running down the road.
Yeah.
That one to
Yeah.
me is just like,
wow. Yeah. Mhm.
There's a lot of things I've been part of over the years that are never, we don't see sometimes the shining lights of society, and we see people on their worst
their
days.
bad days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we do get occasional chuckles at things, and I can think of a few calls back in the day on patrol. We had certain transients that they kept things very lively. And
Fair.
we would see more flesh than we probably
Oh,
would
there you
like
go.
to see.
Okay. Mhm.
And some of them
Yeah.
were like, "Don't ever do that again,"
Yeah.
and it's burned in your mind.
Uh-huh.
And those are like,
And it haunts you in the middle of the night.
and of course, cops have a warped sense of humor
Yeah.
anyway.
Sure.
So yeah, it's we used to. There were jokes that would get played back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
But it's. Gosh, I'm just trying to think of another good one.
It's okay.
My aunt, when she comes to visit, she always wants me to take her in certain areas, and she has stories of particular locations that are no longer here, like the Red Door. Every story I think she ever starts is, well, I got called to the Red Door one night, and I'm like, I would have loved to have seen this place.
Yeah.
I never encountered it. It was gone by the time I came.
Yeah.
There was the Minneapolis bar, the mini house that
Yep.
was still there when I started on the department. But that used to be a pretty lively place as well. That was in the lower south area. It's not too far from where the mission, or is it where the rescue mission is now?
Oh.
I think it's where the
Well,
rest.
that's kind of cool.
I think
Yeah.
I think it is actually in the location where the rescue mission is
funny.
now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, talk about fun places. I'm old enough that the Town Tavern was a great
Oh, boy.
establishment, which is now a legal firm.
Oh.
And that's what
Ironic.
I love about that building.
and the Town Tavern was one of those places that, we got called to on a regular, consistent basis on
I
a
can
Friday,
see
Saturday,
that.
and we would actually start to time it. We knew it was going to be bad, so our officers were like, "All right, it's bar closing time. Everybody head over." And
Yeah.
we just got on the radio.
Just be there.
And we would just park outside, and we'd be sitting there.
Waiting.
We'd have 5 officers outside the bar just waiting, and it was amazing sometimes to watch the patrons come out there like, what's going on?
why
But
are
then,
you
of course,
here?
they got numb to it, and they would
Yeah.
honestly would just start doing dumb things. And we would end up having to intervene.
Yeah.
You
You're
can't
like,
make
this
this
is
up.
why we're here.
It happens.
Yeah.
You can't make it up.
Yeah. Where
People
is
left
that?
to their own Church Harris Johnson Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Used to
diagonal across from Keldergeist.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
It used to be a bar on the first floor, and the second floor was more for adult content.
Yeah.
Ah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Not like the first floor was family friendly.
Right.
It was expressive dancing.
Yes.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. It was a very, and I just love
That's
that.
so funny
now
that it's a
law
law
firm.
firm now.
Yeah.
That
It's-
is funny.
Well, I've had a blast.
Yeah.
You probably learned more about the the tourism office than you probably thought you needed to know.
Yeah.
Never knew truly what this office was about.
Well,
I've
there
got
you
a
go.
whole new appreciation.
Yeah,
Yes.
this
for
is probably
everything
not
that's
the best introduction to tourism in Great Falls, but we do intersect in various moments.
Yeah.
You know, we see a lot of people who ask a lot of random questions, and we try to tell them things that we know and things that we don't know, and direct them to the places that they need to be, and that kind of stuff. So getting answers to some of our deep-seated questions have really been helpful.
Yes.
Mostly because it's not very often, but we do get asked, is Great Falls safe? And it's just nice to have an expert, not
Yeah.
someone who's just making stuff up from their own perspective to go,
Right.
It's safe.
Yeah. And now when people comment on the Great Falls pages, I will just send them a link to this episode. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
just, it's one of those things that you sit and look at it. And unfortunately, in my mind, sometimes I get the skewed perception
Sure.
of, man, some things are really bad. But when you take a look from that I pull the blinders off and I
Yeah.
look at it as a whole,
Uh-huh.
it's really not that bad.
No.
It's where you put yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's bad places everywhere you go, but I'm
Absolutely.
just not putting myself in those bad places. And I
Right.
go to enjoy myself in different areas of town, and rarely
Yeah.
do you run into any problems. Most of the time, Great Falls is one of those places that it's fun. There are a lot of things to do. You've got to be curious.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
that'll complain that there's nothing to do here.
Oh, just
I
aren't
get a
looking.
They're
little
living under a rock.
Yeah.
I get a little confused because there are so many events that happen downtown. And, when you commented, I like to stay at home and I just want to be away from people. You're not wrong, because I love
Yeah.
being at home. I love, being outside. Fun fact, I love the garden. I have a garden and I love being
Might
out
have
there
to
in the
pick
yard.
your brain. Help
but
with our garden.
Not my area.
but it's those type of things. My wife and I love being home with the dogs and
Yeah.
doing our thing. So it truly is something that when you get out and look at stuff, it's fun here.
But you make the choice to do that. It's not like you're
Right.
sequestered there. Like,
No.
Right.
I'm part of the GFPD, so after work I got to head home because I
Yeah.
can't see people outside of work hours.
Yeah.
And we know and we're smart that we don't put ourselves in those situations.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want our folks to do that, and I don't want visitors to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Go to the places that you recommend. So
Yeah.
when you give them all the guidance,
Right.
that's the
We're
places
not
to go.
sending you places that we know will actively have issues. Yeah.
Exactly.
well, and if that's what you're searching out,
You'll find it.
you're not going to be
Yeah.
talking to us.
No, that's
Exactly.
true. Yeah. The gentleman from Detroit who you were referencing
Yeah.
didn't come to our office.
No,
I
he-
hope.
Nope, he didn't show up.
He knew all of those places that you didn't need didn't want to go to.
Yeah.
So, as I close, I'm just going to share. My husband is on one extreme, like you, always constantly being aware. He is convinced that every time you leave the house, you're going to get murdered.
See, I'm not to that.
I'm on the
I'm
other
not
end of the
that.
extreme, and I got to balance that out because when
Yeah.
I travel, my husband's like, "Oh, I hope you don't die," and I'm like, how many statistics are there that I haven't even encountered issues in my 40 whatever years of
Yeah.
living and traveling? So, yes, dear, I'll be safe. Closest I got was to a very large rat in New Orleans.
Very large rat.
That was interesting. I thought it was a cat. I went down
Oh.
to pet it. Wasn't a cat.
Oh, see, okay, so see that my
Yeah.
questions about animals.
I didn't call 911 and go, what are you going to do about this rat that's hanging
right,
out?
but it was a wild animal that you
It
tried to
was.
pet.
Because I thought it was a cat.
Right, you were in a different environment.
Yeah.
People
Sounds like
think the
something my
mountain lions
wife
are-
would do. She loves
Well,
animals. I'm going to go pet. No,
One-
don't pet that.
One of the problems was it was shortly after a hurricane, so there was that excess water, which caused
all of
them
that.
to be in areas they wouldn't
Yeah.
normally be. So
At the fair, there's the horses. I grew up riding horses, love horses. I understand horses can bite you. Thankfully, that hasn't been my experience. But one of the horses kind of like stuck his nose out towards my face. So I kissed the horse on the nose, and Jason was like, "What are you doing? That was really brave. He could have bit you." And I was just like, I guess he could have, but
he
I'm
wanted
fine.
to
I
kiss.
was feeling fine. And I was standing there like talking.
Did you let him know? We had a moment.
Right,
We had the vibe was
This
there.
is what he wanted, and I gave
realize
it to
that
him.
That sounds weird, but that's just like how I interacted with. I know it sounds weird, but there was also the mules there. I was not even petting mule. I was just standing there, like looking at the mule, and Jason's like, "You're making him angry." I'm like, "I'm literally." His ears are back, and I was like, "Look at the mules. That's how they stand. That's how their ears are." I'm not making the. He was just so paranoid that I was going to get like this. Somebody
Can't
would
wait
bite
till
me,
I see him again.
and I'm like, No. So I'm like your wife. I will go approach the animals, but I'm not stupid about it.
Because you're hyper vigilant on everything. So thank goodness you've got Shannon to visit with when you show up at our office. And if you need help planning your trip, Shannon's your person. Obviously not me.
I just say be aware. That's all I'm saying. Be aware of your surroundings.
I'm aware.
Okay, sure you
Clearly not as much as I need to be, because I don't do half the things you do. But that's fine, because we all make the world go round.
Yes.
So until we see your bright, smiling, happy, healthy, safe face here in Great Falls, we hope you are creating amazing memories with your friends and family wherever you are. We'll see you soon.
We're No Dam Experts is the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing dam town. Damn, that felt good.